Hi, everybody. Today we are going to finish reading the story that we've been reading, Mercy Watson's Crime. Before we finish it, I first want to talk to you about what to do in case of a reading emergency. So, this is the book that I'm reading right now. It's called The Namesake. I was reading it the other day and I saw the words with my eyes, but nothing was happening in my brain. And I got to the end of the page and I couldn't remember what I had just read. It's like my brain was in la la land. Okay, so I just wanted to ask, has that ever happened to you? Have you ever been reading something and then all of a sudden you don't remember what you just read? So we call that a reading emergency. So it's especially easy for that to happen now because we are in our houses and there's so many distractions. Like there might be a brother and sister yelling, or we might have something else going on, lots of noises. I have some construction outside my window right now, so it's easy for me to just get distracted and not even remember what I read. So I want to show us three things that we can do in case of a reading emergency. The first thing when we get off track is we can just stop. We can go back and reread that part, and then we can answer any questions that we might have. Okay? So we're going to try this today as we're reading our last chapters of and we are on chapter 13. Mercy sniffed. There was that delightful smell again. Butter! Where was it coming from? She looked around. She saw the little man lying on the ground. Okay, now I have a question right here. I'm forgetting why the little man was lying on the ground. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stop right here. I'm going to go back to this last page we just had read before, and I'm going to reread that. Ah, said Leroy Ninker, this is the life. But just then the pig kicked up her heels. The pig bucked. The pig reared. Leroy Ninker lost his grip. Yippee, said Leroy. He flew through the air. I, said Leroy. He landed on his back. Oh, why he was on the ground. He's on the ground because he was on Mercy's back, but Mercy bucked him off. So now he's lying there on the ground. So one thing that we can do is we can make a little sticky note of that to help us remember that we got off track and now we remember what happened. So I made a little sticky that said, Mercy bucked Leroy off her back. So now I can go back to where I was reading before. Okay. She looked around. She saw the little man lying on the ground, and I know why he's on the ground now. Hee hee, the little man said. That tickles. Mercy snuffled the man's shirt. Hee hee, he said again. In order to snuffle the man better, Mercy sat on top of him. Hee hee, get off me, said the man. Mercy put her snout in the man's shirt pocket. She snuffled some more. Oh, hee hee, said the little man. Help! Mercy found a piece of candy. She bit into it. It was sweet. It was lovely. It was very, very buttery. Mercy sat on top of the little man and chewed. A siren wailed. Ah, shucks, said the man. Chapter 14. The fire department arrived first. We have been to this house before, said the fireman named Ned. You are right, said the fireman named Lorenzo. This is the house with the pig. And the toast, said Ned. We ate toast at this house before. Okay, now I'm a little bit confused right here, so I'm just going to go ahead and stop. Now, I'm not going to reread right now because I know that um, the part about the firefighters coming, they said they've been to this house before, but I know they didn't come in this story. I don't remember the firefighters coming in this story, even when I look back. Okay, so I know that this book is a series one, and I also remember reading the first Mercy book, Mercy Watson to the Rescue, and oh, so these firefighters went to the house before in the first Mercy book. You guys remember that? The bed was falling through the ceiling, and the firefighters came to rescue Mr. and Mrs. Watson. Okay, so now I can remember. Now I've answered that question about that I had about them going to the house before, so now I can keep going. I see the pig, said Lorenzo. He pointed at Mercy. The pig is sitting on somebody. Good grief, said Ned. Ned and Lorenzo got out of the fire truck. They saw Mr. and Mrs. Watson running out the front door of their house. They saw Eugenia Lincoln and baby Lincoln running out the front door of their house. This is an interesting job, isn't it? Said Ned. Very interesting, said Lorenzo. Okay, this is the end of the chapter, so before I go on to the next one, I'm just going to leave a little note right here. My question that said, firefighters came to the Watsons' house in the first Mercy story. This is just going to help me remember about them saying that they were there before. Chapter 15. Officer Tomolello pulled into the driveway of 54 Deckerwood Drive. In the yard, he saw 2 firemen, 3 women in nightgowns, and 1 man in pajamas. They were all gathered around a pig. Is that the same pig I caught driving a convertible? He asked himself. All right, I'm going to stop right here on this page because there's a lot going on this page. Okay, I'm going to reread. Officer Tomolello pulled into the driveway of 54 Deckerwood Drive. In the yard, he saw 2 firemen, 3 women in nightgowns, and 1 man in pajamas. I have a question. Who are all of these people? I know there's the 2 firemen. There's 3 women in nightgowns. So my question is, who is that? That must be Eugenia, Baby, and Miss Watson. And the man in pajamas must be Mr. Watson. And they were all gathered around a pig. So he's asking, is that the same pig I caught driving a convertible? So maybe Mercy has driven a convertible before? Sometime else that he has seen her? I don't know. It is, he answered himself. It is exactly the same pig. Okay, so now we know that Mercy, there must have been another time when Mercy was driving a convertible around. Officer Tomolello squinted. Is that pig sitting on top of somebody? Officer Tomolello asked himself. That certainly looks to be the case, he answered himself. Officer! Officer! Shouted Baby. Come quickly! Mercy has caught a thief. Mr. Watson and Mrs. Watson and Eugenia Lincoln and Baby Lincoln and Ned and Lorenzo and Officer Tomolello all looked down at Mercy. Are you a thief? Officer Tomolello asked the man under the pig. I am a thief. Were you robbing these people? Officer Tomolello asked. I was, said Leroy Ninker, until the pig got involved. Gentlemen, said Officer Tomolello, will you assist me in removing the pig? On the count of 3, Ned and Lorenzo and Officer Tomolello lifted Mercy off of Leroy Ninker. You are under arrest, said Officer Tomolello. It's that pig you should be arresting, said Eugenia Lincoln. Leroy Ninker stood with his cowboy hat in his hand. Oh, officer, said Miss Watson. The thief is so tiny. Shouldn't he have something to eat before you arrest him? Maybe he needs some toast, said Ned. With a great deal of butter on it, added Lorenzo. Toast, said Officer Tomolello. Who needs toast? Why, everyone needs toast, said Mrs. Watson. Even cowboys, said Leroy Ninker. Mercy pricked up her ears. Toast? Butter? At last! She headed for the Watsons' kitchen. And last chapter, chapter 16. The next morning, the front page of the newspaper read, Pet pig captures thief, sits on him until help arrives. She's a Porcine wonder, said the pig owner, Miss Watson. She is very, very brave. She is a very, very brave dear, said Mr. Watson, husband of Mrs. Watson and proud co-owner of the pig. Okay, so I'm going to pause right there. I'm going to stop right there, and I'm going to reread that part. Mrs. Watson says something about her. Mr. Watson says something about her. Oh, this must be what's in the article. So this must be what they're saying about Mercy in the newspaper. She is a sly pig, said the Watsons' neighbor, Eugenia Lincoln, and things with her are never as they seem. Baby Lincoln, sister to Eugenia Lincoln, remarked that the most interesting things seem to happen when one has pie right before bed. The pig did capture the thief, said Police Officer Bert Tomalolo. How it happened, I am not certain, but did it happen? It did. Firemen Ned Fortune and Lorenzo Wiz were also at the They both agreed that the pig had some amazing abilities. They also pointed out that Mrs. Watson made excellent toast. The thief, Leroy Ninker, is interested in reforming himself. He would like to become a cowboy. The pig had nothing to say, but she All right, friends, as you are reading your book today, remember to stay focused as best as you can, but if you do get off track, remember to do three things. You can stop, you can reread that part again, and then answer any questions that you had about it. All right, good luck and happy reading.